So today, we're going to unpack the story of Verkhny Tagil. It's a small industrial city deep in the heart of Russia, and its story is one of just incredible ambition and community, but also the huge, huge challenges that show up when your entire world changes around you. And what's fascinating is what this story tells us about progress, about identity, and about what happens when the very foundation of a town gets shaken. All right, let's dive in. And right away, you see the central conflict, the whole tension of the story. On one hand, you have this heroic Soviet-era language, talking about shock tempos and selfless labor. And then on the other hand, you have these stark, modern headlines calling it a disappearing city. So how does a place get from that to this? That's the story we're going to figure out.
Okay, first, a little bit of history. To really get what's happening in Verkhny Tagil today, you've got to understand that this is a city that has basically already died and come back to life once before.
So the whole story kicks off way back in the 18th century. It was founded around an iron factory. For almost 200 years, that's what it was. But then, after the 1917 revolution, the factory shut down. And just like that, its purpose vanished. It wasn't until 1951, that is, when the Soviet government gave it a whole new lease on life, a brand new mission, to become the home of a massive new power station. Aggress.
And wow, did that decision kick off something epic. We're not just talking about putting up a factory here. This was about forging a brand new community from the ground up, fueled by just sheer human will. And this quote, it just brings it all down to such a human level. This is from Anastasia Bulakova, who later became a hero of socialist labor. She remembers lighting the very first flame and the very first boiler. I mean, can you imagine that pressure? The equipment was all new, there was no automation to help, everything had to be figured out on the spot. As she said, it was really difficult, but they got it going.
And this number, man, it just shows you the sheer scale of what they accomplished. 1,600 megawatts. Think about that. In about a decade, they built the most powerful thermal power station in the entire Urals region. This wasn't some local project. This was a true powerhouse for Russia's industrial heartland.
But that kind of success, it came at a huge personal cost. You can just hear it in this quote from Veniamin Bulakov, a deputy shop head. He says his wife barely ever saw him. He'd be gone at 7 a.m. and not get back till late at night. The whole mindset was just, we must do it, let's go, let's go. It was this incredible shared drive that pushed everyone.
And they weren't just building a power plant. No, they were building a whole life. I mean, look at this list. A beautiful house of culture, tons of new housing, new schools, a modern hospital. They even built a sanatorium and planted parks with thousands of trees. It was kind of like the deal, you know. You pour your heart and soul into the work, and in return, you get a good life, a full community provided for you.
So what was it actually like to live in a place like this? Well, this gets us to this really interesting concept of the Monotown, where the factory isn't just a place you clock in and out of, it's the center of your entire universe. So for anyone who's not familiar, a monotown, or monograd, as they say in Russian, is basically a town where everything, and I mean everything, revolves around one single industry. The plant gives you your job, your apartment, your healthcare, your entertainment. The whole rhythm of life is tied to this one massive enterprise. And this created such a deep, powerful sense of community. Take this quote from Antonina Yegorova, a local hairdresser. When she's asked why she loved her job, she doesn't talk about styling hair. She says, I love people. You know, you make people beautiful. Her purpose was completely tied to the people of her town. There's such a beautiful pride in that. And that pride, it went right to the top. The plant's director for many years, Anatoly Brizgalov, just loved to brag about his people. He'd point out that his station was the only one in all of Russia where a single person could operate both the turbine and the boiler. These weren't just cogs in a machine. They were, as he put it, highly qualified specialists. For decades, this whole system felt totally solid, unbreakable. But then, the 1990s hit, and the entire world that Verkhny Tagil had ever known was just flipped completely upside down.
And right here, you can just see these two completely different worlds colliding. You had the Soviet-planned economy, guaranteed jobs, stability, this feeling that everyone was in it together. And then boom,
it's replaced by the market. And the new vocabulary is restructuring, competition, and this deep nagging uncertainty that, in the director's own words, was worrying everyone.
And here's that same director, Anatoly Brizgalov, but now he's speaking in the early 2000s. Just listen to the change in his tone. The confident bragging about his unique workforce, it's gone. Now he's talking about the anxiety, the stress of reform, and having to figure out how to operate under totally new conditions. This next quote, it just captures the huge mental shift they all had to make. A local official, Sergei Vithert, he lays it out there so bluntly. No one will come and do it for us. The era when you could just wait for the state to solve every problem, it was over. This community, a community built on that state support, now had to learn how to stand on its own 2 feet. And all of that brings us right back to the present day, and to that alarming headline we saw at the very beginning. Is this city actually literally disappearing?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Is Verkhny Tagil disappearing? Let's take a look at what the different sides are saying.
Well, the picture it's messy. It's not a simple yes or no. You've got economic researchers who have put Verkhny Tagil on this list of disappearing cities. They point to the industrial crisis, to people leaving town. But then you have the city's leadership pushing back, hard, saying, no, that's wrong. We are stable. We have a future. And the Grez director, he's kind of in the middle. He's saying, look, our plant is special, it's adaptable, but the challenges we're facing, they are absolutely real. And that leaves us with this final, really powerful thought from a researcher named Stepan Zemtsov. He makes a great point. History is filled with small towns that have reinvented themselves. So the story here isn't necessarily over. The real question, the one that hangs over everything, is what's next? What's going to be that new point of growth that can give this town a third life? And, that's a question that hundreds of industrial towns just like it all over the world are asking themselves right now.